First of all, I'd just like once again to thank our two pipe carriers, our elders, George Gray Buffalo and Elder Bryan McNabb Sr. for coming out and helping us start things off in a good way and giving blessings to our community of Horizon and our community with our staff here in our building and in all our schools. So once again, thank you on behalf of the board and the staff here and of course all of our offices here. So just a brief history in terms of what is happening today is of course we're all working on the journey towards reconciliation and doing what we can. And I give thanks to the Board of Education, Horizon Board of Education, our trustees for allowing us to continue that journey here within our division, within our office, within our schools, within our territory. And I also give thanks to our CEO, Director Kevin Garinger, for allowing us to do this and giving us the time and the freedom and the flexibility to do what we would like to do in terms of our journey towards reconciliation. So it started some time back in regards to we had an opportunity to get a grant from the ministry to do something along the lines of reconciliation, and Amanda Moosemay sort of got the application from Marnie, and it sort of went from there. And along with Superintendent Katherine and Melanie and myself and Amanda, we sort of planned and put together what we thought would be a really good, symbolic event to have reconciliation right here within our walls of our building. And they came to me one day and said, do you think we could paint one of the walls? And I'm like, you want to paint one of the walls? And so I talked to Kevin, and then Kevin said, sure, yeah, do what you got to do. So so we got to paint one of the walls. Also, I would like to just acknowledge, the artistic ability of Melanie, for she's the one that has the gift of photography and went out and took the pictures. The pictures are very, very symbolic. They've got meaning to each one. And what has happened is we've got some traditional teachings from the East, which was part of Melanie's family, her aunt, and we've incorporated those teachings into the pictures and put together what we felt was a good way to honor not only our traditional teachings, but to honor, our reconciliation, and also honor our traditional territories here, both Treaty 6 and Treaty 4, of which we are on this morning. So with that, I guess I would just like to acknowledge that we are on Treaty 6 territory, and our borders are also into Treaty 4, homeland of the Métis, and, have been settled upon by our ancestors and our elders since time immemorial. So with that, I'm going to call our CEO, Director Kevin Garinger, up to the mic to say a few words.
Well, thank you so much, Bryan. And I just want to first of all say good morning and welcome everyone, certainly to our many guests. And it's certainly an honor to have you here at our Horizon office. And this has become something that has been really a tradition for us, is making sure that we come together, and we always have a very important day on National Indigenous Peoples Day in June. But this is something that really is going to continue the important work that the board has had. And it's interesting, when we talk about the board, they have been very passionate about truth and reconciliation, of course, but also just the learnings that need to happen within our school division and with our teachers and certainly with our children. And there have been some really wonderful things that have been happening, and this is just another one that we know is such an important way in which we can honor the work that goes on in our schools across our province and our country, and that work is all about truth and reconciliation. So I welcome you here to Treaty 6 territory, and of course Horizon's boundaries do extend to Treaty 4. And I want to also begin by acknowledging our elders, and certainly the pipe ceremony this morning. It's wonderful to sit in something like a pipe ceremony and just to listen and be able to be involved in the prayers that are part of the ceremony, and to listen to the teachings. And so I really can't say enough about our elders, Bryan McNabb Sr. and of course George Longman, for helping us with our learning this morning and allowing our prayers to help support the work that we do, but also to make sure that we recognize the challenges that some of us are facing. And I think about people whose families are hurting at this time, or who are hurting because of things that are happening in families. And I think about the tragedy that is most recent to us all, that involved a school and 19 children who were slain, and 2 teachers who were also lost in that terrible ordeal in Texas. And so we think about those things, and it was a great opportunity to be able to do that together, and to continue to learn about not only the ceremony, but also the ability then to really think about our own, about the things that are going on in our own lives, but the lives of others, and to really honor that. I want to acknowledge the members of our board, like I said, who are really have such a major vision around truth and reconciliation, and around Indigenous ways of knowing and learning. And so I thank them for being here. And I know that I have our Vice Chair, Linda Maddock, is here. And on the left, or on the right, pardon me, over here, we have Dana Stephenson, one of our trustees from Wynyard. And we have Jim Lacina, who is from Kelvington area. And Doug Armbruster is here from Raymore. And I know that Albert was here as well, and I'm just looking for him. Oh, here he is, right here. And I just need to look for the sunglasses. Kind of like me, I'm wearing sunglasses right now, and the sun is certainly amazing and beautiful and warm, but it's a little bit hard on my eyes. So, and I know that it is with Albert too. So I want to acknowledge those trustees who were able to be here, and the others who weren't. We've got graduations happening and a number of other things that are happening right now, and so our trustees are very involved, not only in the work that happens in Horizon, but in, of course, their own family lives as well. But I thank them for being here. I also want to thank the staff, all of you, of course, and all of our staff across our school division, the 43 schools that we serve children in, and our other sites where we have our bus drivers and mechanics and others who are doing important work in keeping our children safe on roads and that sort of thing. But I also want to acknowledge this ceremony and this opportunity to be involved in a 7-generation walk to recognize our Superintendent of Indigenous Education, Mr. Bryan McNabb, and the work that he has done, along with our literacy coach, Amanda Moosemay, our admin assistant, Melanie Gray, who's amazing photography. If you ever are outside my office, you'll see one of the amazing pictures that Melanie has done. And so I haven't seen these pictures yet. I'm looking so forward to them. So thank you for that. Of course, to our Superintendent of Learning, who has had a major hand in lots of things that we are doing. And we were just talking, I was talking with one of our honored guests here, and the fact that we're looking at erecting an amazing teepee on George Gordon, and the fact that that work would happen through the work of Katherine and Bryan and Amanda, and certainly Melanie had her hand and does have her hand in a lot of that, along with Heidi Linford and the rest of the literacy team, who just have been so important in all this. And I would be remiss if I did not acknowledge April Longman as well for being with us today. And of course, I also want to thank Irma Anderson, who is, I don't know if Irma made it out. Hopefully oh, there she is right there. I said, Irma, are you coming out with us? And she said, I have to manage the soup. So you have to eat. So that's kind of the way it is. So I want to acknowledge all those folks and so many others who have been part of this today. We're really privileged by the company that we enjoy together. And Dr. Stephen Covey has stated in his 7 Habits of Highly Effective People that first we must seek to understand, and then only then can we be understood. And I think always it's imperative that it's on us to truly seek to understand, to truly listen, and to understand what we can do to continue our work around truth and reconciliation. Just as part of our commitment to furthering the work of that we all have around truth and reconciliation and the calls to action, I am proud that we have this ceremony today. And Justice Murray Sinclair, he has said that education got us into a mess in the past, and education will help get us out. And so it was wonderful to be honored to have the statements that were made by Bryan McNabb Sr, our elder, as well as George Longman, our elder, and talking about the importance of learning and education and the people who support children every day. So I agree that with Murray Sinclair and Senator Murray Sinclair in that way, that I think education is the way that we are going to continue to be able to recognize the truths and learn from it and continue our path toward reconciliation. So the work is ahead of us, and I will continue to look forward to supporting the work that my board does and listening and learning from our educational partners who are here today as we all strive for a greater future for all. So once again, just want to thank each and every one of you for being here today and for joining us on this 7-generation walk. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. So I'd just like to also acknowledge from the councillor from the city here, Roger Corte. So if you I thank you for coming out and helping us and honoring us with your presence here this morning. So welcome. So with that, we're going to move into our unveiling of our 7th generation pictures. And also was handed out were little pouches of tobacco that we felt would be a good symbolic gesture and as a way to show your appreciation and your presence here, and that we ask that before you leave, you go and place them into the fire as a symbolic gesture and as a way of blessing our morning events as well. So with that, I'm going to call April up, and she will speak to picture number 1.
Indigenous people have lived here on this land for many thousands of years, since the beginning of time. They lived in peace and harmony. They shared loving and caring relationships with one another. They respected the earth and all of creation with all of their being. The children learned how to live a joyful life through observation and by being with their families, nations, and all of creation. There was abundance of food and meaningful work, and they lived by their teachings, honesty, sharing, and strength. They worked together, and each person had a special role and purpose for their life. Their government was formed by consensus. Everyone had a voice and contributed to the well-being of their nations. They shared a good life.
Just wanted to also add some additional comments. At one time, the buffalo was our ancestors' way of life. It was a substance. It provided, the home, the food, the clothing, and the Elders have said that education is the new buffalo. It's a way that that is the way to provide our way of life, our homes, and provide for our families and that sort of thing. So I'm next going to call up Kevin to do photo number 2.
When the Europeans arrived on the shores of North America about 500 years ago, many were sick with diseases. The Indigenous people greeted them with kindness. They provided food, medicines, and shared their wisdom and knowledge of living in harmony with the land. The newcomers came with a different understanding and wanted to claim the land as their own. The Indigenous people tried to share their good life. However, it wasn't long before they were asked to take sides in territorial wars. Some sided with the British and some sided with the French. As more Europeans came, Indigenous people were pushed from their lands, and more than half died after contracting diseases that were brought to their shores. The missionaries, not recognizing Indigenous spirituality and ways of life, pushed their Christian religion on the people. This caused confusion and disharmony in family life. As more missionaries came with different Christian faiths, they began to compete for the souls of the Indigenous people, creating more confusion, division, fear, and doubt.
So photo number 1 represents the beginning, and photo number 2 represents contact. So I'm going to call up Katherine, please.
The Indian Act was created by the government. Indigenous people were forced onto poor tracts of land. They were given new ways to live and work. Their governance was changed from consensus to majority rule. New government-appointed officials, called Indian agents, had supreme power over every facet of life. Indigenous people could not leave their reserves without asking for permission. They suffered many hardships, and they witnessed abuses of their people, their environment, and sacred lands. Resources that had sustained them for thousands of years were being destroyed, and it became more difficult to provide food for their families. The good life was forever changed.
So photo number 3 represents colonization. This picture is an original permit that was issued to my great-grandfather, Alexander McNabb, and I actually have the original permit in my possession. So that just shows that, a part of our history and colonization. And I do believe later on you can take a look at it, and he had permission to leave the reserve for 5 days. So photo number 4 will be by Amanda.
Residential schools were created by the government to speed up the assimilation and take the Indian out of the child. Churches were given the authority to administer these schools and govern the children. The children were taken from their homes and families for years at a time. They were forced to give up their way of life, their language, their culture, and were subject to strict discipline. Many children were beaten for speaking their language or praying for their families. The children were taught the Christian religion daily and were prohibited from practicing their own spirituality. The children suffered physical abuse, sexual abuse, mental abuse, emotional abuse, and spiritual abuse. Many of the children never returned home, and even to this day, some of their bodies have not been recovered. This is one of the darkest times in history, and people today are only beginning to learn about it. It will take much more time to heal from this intergenerational harm. The healing process will take love and understanding from all people.
So photo number 4 represents assimilation, and this picture was taken by Melanie as she and Amanda traveled out to Muskogee, where residential school still stands, and it's a very, very powerful picture as Amanda standing in front of the school. So, photo number 5. If we can ask Trish up here, please.
During the World Wars, many Indigenous people volunteered to leave their families and go to war. They fought for our country and were overseas for many years. They saw the horrendous results of war, and many were killed and did not return home. Those who did return were not treated fairly by the government. Indigenous veterans came home to no work and experienced poverty. They were not treated as war heroes. The men and women were not considered citizens of Canada and were not treated equally to non-Indigenous veterans. They were disrespected, and the government refused to provide them with the benefits that all veterans deserved. They turned to alcohol to numb the pain of war and to numb the pain of the loss of their families and the good life.
Thank you, Trish. And photo number 5 represents honor. So photo number 6, I will ask Charmin to come up, please.
This is the lost generation. With so many losses and feelings of hopelessness, there are power struggles and violence in the home. When the children returned from residential schools, they returned as strangers. They lost their loving family relationships, their language, their culture, and spirituality. They suffer from high rates of suicide, alcoholism, and drug abuse. Families are riddled with pain of family violence and child sexual abuse. The youth are searching for something, but don't know what it is or how to find it. The jails are filled with Indigenous people. Indigenous women and men are vulnerable as many continue to be murdered or missing. Indigenous people live in fear and suffer from ethno-stress, and many die young from high rates of diseases like diabetes, cancer, stroke, and heart attacks. There is so much sickness, heartache, guilt, and shame. For many, life has no meaning or purpose. The good life is just a memory.
So photo number 6 represents truth, and listening to some speakers just recently, they talked about truth and reconciliation, that you have to know the truth of what happened and acknowledge that, and then move on to reconciliation. So this picture represents truth. So photo number 7, if we can have Melanie up here, please.
We are at a crossroad. We are sick and tired. We cannot carry these burdens any longer. We don't want our children to have to carry these burdens for another generation. We must understand the generations who came before us so we can heal the hurts from the past. We have a choice to make. We need to begin the healing journey together.
So photo number 7 represents the journey of reconciliation. This is another powerful picture that Melanie and Amanda traveled to George Gordon First Nation and visited one of our oldest band members and took a picture of their hands together. Unfortunately, our grandmother passed away just recently. She was 101 years old, and we're very honored to have a picture of her that will hang in our building here in our office. So photo number 8 represents hope. See the future ahead of you. See the future generations. These are the children, the grandchildren, and the great-grandchildren. Let's choose to do better, be better, live better, and love one another. Then we will all live the good life. The These teachings, as I mentioned earlier, were from an elder from the East, Lorraine Mcrae. And we have been in contact with her, and we presented her with tobacco to use these teachings so that we could bring them, to our territory and feel honored to hang them in our hallway here in our building. So again, I'd just like to thank our Board of Education and of course Kevin for allowing us to have a wall of recognition and reconciliation that will be on display, and we will hang our pictures there for all to see who visit our building from this day forward. So with that, I thank all of our speakers for coming up and helping us unveil the pictures. I also like to thank our very own Vanna White, Jason, for unveiling the pictures. Before I move to the next part of our agenda, I just want to, I guess summarize what I heard at one of our last conferences we went to, where a knowledge keeper by the name of Lyndon Linklater made some very positive, powerful comments when he talked about truth and reconciliation. He said that reconciliation is not the mandate of the government. It's not the mandate of the boards. It's not the mandate of the directors and the CEOs. It's not the mandate of any individual. It basically, reconciliation starts with you, and it starts with me. And I thought that was very powerful when he said that reconciliation starts with you, and it starts with me. So I think I'm very proud of the work that we do in Horizon under the guidance of our board and our CEO Director Kevin. I do believe we're leading in the province of Saskatchewan in terms of the work that is being done, and I'm very proud to say that I'm a part of it along with all the rest of the staff here in our division. So with that, I'm going to ask our singers if they can come forward and do an honor song. Please rise. So I'm going to ask everybody to move to the center and hold hands, and we'll do a round dance. Thank you, everyone. That concludes our morning's agenda. Last thing we're going to do is, if you can place the tobacco ties, and maybe we'll start on one side and just place them into the fire. So once again, just on behalf of our planning reconciliation group, Superintendent Katherine, Melanie, Amanda, and myself, we thank all the staff for coming out and participating and helping us do this in a good way. We have Irma here who's prepared lunch for us. So let's give her a big hand for all the work she's done this morning. So once again, feel free to come and have a look at the pictures, and once again, lunch is provided. So thank you.